always feel like, I think retirement is something that's super earned and that people work really hard for, and maybe I haven't worked hard enough. But I just feel like I'm at an age where I definitely have a lot more to give, and there's a lot more that I want to do, and so I'm not going to be relaxing. There's so much more for me, and I feel it's more of like an evolution of Serena, and there's so many things that I've been wanting to do for so many years, and I have such a passion for tennis for so long that I have never done it, but now it's time for me to like start to enjoy those things.
What if I told you that the greatest tennis player of all time was once told she would never make it because she didn't look like a typical tennis player? What if I told you that she faced racism so brutal that fans would boo her at every match, that she was written off as too aggressive, too muscular, too different to ever succeed in the elegant world of tennis? This is the incredible story of Serena Williams and how she transformed every obstacle, every setback, every moment of doubt into fuel that powered her to become the most dominant athlete in tennis history. But here's what will shock you. The real secret to her success wasn't her powerful serve or lightning-fast reflexes. It was her unbreakable mindset and her refusal to let anyone else define her limits. I'm about to reveal the exact mental strategies, the daily habits, and the revolutionary approach that allowed a young black girl from Compton to not just compete with the tennis elite, but to completely dominate them for over 2 decades. And if you think this is just another sports story, think again. This is a masterclass in resilience that will change how you approach every challenge in your own life. Let me take you back to the concrete courts of Compton, California in the early 1990s. While most future tennis champions were training at exclusive country clubs with private coaches, 4-year-old Serena Williams was learning to play on cracked public courts surrounded by gang violence and poverty. Her father, Richard Williams, had a vision that seemed absolutely insane to everyone who heard it. He had never played tennis professionally, had no formal coaching experience, and was working multiple jobs just to support his family. But he looked at his daughters, Venus and Serena, and declared that they would both become the #1 tennis players in the world. People laughed at him. They called him delusional, obsessed, and unrealistic. But Richard Williams understood something that most people never grasp. Champions aren't born in comfort zones. They're forged in the fire of adversity, shaped by challenges that would break ordinary people. This is the first powerful lesson we learn from Serena's journey. Your background doesn't determine your destiny. Your response to your background determines your destiny. While others saw Compton as a limitation, the Williams family saw it as their launching pad. Richard would wake up at 6 a.m. every morning and take his daughters to those public courts. They didn't have fancy equipment or perfect conditions. They practiced with old balls that barely bounced and rackets that were held together with tape. But what they had was something more valuable than any expensive equipment. They had hunger, determination, and an unshakable belief in their potential. The early training sessions were brutal. Richard didn't just teach tennis techniques, he taught mental toughness. He would have people come to the courts and heckle the girls during practice, preparing them for the racism and hostility they would face as black players in a predominantly white sport. He knew that tennis skill alone wouldn't be enough. In a sport where tradition and conformity were valued above everything else, his daughters would need armor-plated confidence to succeed. They would need to be mentally stronger than anyone who had come before them. This reveals the second crucial principle of Serena's success. Prepare for the mental game as intensively as you prepare for the physical game. While others were just practicing their strokes, Serena was building unbreakable mental resilience. When Serena was 9 years old, the family made a decision that shocked the tennis world. They moved to Florida so Venus and Serena could train at a proper tennis academy. But even there, the challenges were far from over. Serena was often the only black player at tournaments. She would walk into country clubs where she felt the stares, heard the whispers, and sensed the doubt from everyone around her. Other parents would question whether she belonged there. Opponents would try to intimidate her with psychological games. But instead of shrinking from this pressure, Serena learned to use it as fuel. Every doubting look became motivation to prove them wrong. Every whispered comment became ammunition for her determination. every moment of being underestimated became an opportunity to shock the world with her talent. This brings us to the third principle of her success: transform external pressure into internal power. Instead of letting other people's expectations limit you, let their doubts motivate you to reach levels they never thought possible. By the time Serena turned professional at 14, she had already developed the mindset that would define her entire career. She wasn't just playing tennis, she was on a mission to revolutionize the sport and prove that excellence has no color, no background, and no predetermined path. Her early professional years were filled with defeats that would have crushed most young athletes. She lost in the first round of tournaments, struggled with her ranking, and faced constant criticism about her playing style. Tennis traditionalists said she was too aggressive, too powerful, too different from the graceful players they were used to seeing. But Serena had learned something from those early days in Compton. Every champion goes through a phase where they're misunderstood, underestimated, and criticized for being different. The key is to stay true to your authentic style while continuously improving your weaknesses. This leads us to the fourth principle we learn from Serena. Embrace what makes you different instead of trying to fit in. Your unique approach might be exactly what the world needs, even if it doesn't realize it yet. The breakthrough moment came in 1999 when Serena won her first Grand Slam at the US Open. She was just 17 years old, and her victory sent shockwaves through the tennis world. Here was a teenager from Compton who had just defeated some of the most experienced players in the world with a style of play that was unlike anything they had ever seen. But winning her first Grand Slam was just the beginning. Serena quickly realized that maintaining success was much harder than achieving it. Every opponent now studied her game. Every tournament had added pressure, and every match came with the expectation that she would dominate. The tennis world was waiting for her to fail, to prove that her first Grand Slam was just a fluke. Instead, Serena used this pressure to develop what would become her greatest weapon: her mental toughness in crucial moments. She developed a routine for high-pressure situations that was based on complete focus and absolute confidence. When the stakes were highest, when the crowd was loudest, when the pressure was most intense, Serena would become calmer, more focused, and more dangerous than ever. This gives us the fifth principle of her success: develop systems for peak performance under pressure. The ability to perform your best when it matters most is what separates good players from champions. Throughout the early 2000s, Serena began her systematic domination of women's tennis. But success brought new challenges that tested her mental strength in ways she had never experienced before. The media scrutiny became intense. Every aspect of her life was analyzed, criticized, and debated. Her fashion choices, her confidence, her celebrations after victories, everything was seen as either too much or not enough. She faced criticism that male athletes never had to deal with. When male tennis players showed emotion and intensity, they were called passionate competitors. When Serena showed the same traits, she was called aggressive and unsportsmanlike. But instead of changing who she was to please her critics, Serena made a decision that would define the rest of her career. She would be unapologetically herself, and she would let her results speak louder than any criticism. This brings us to the sixth principle we learn from Serena's journey: never dim your light to make others comfortable. The world needs you at your full power, not a watered-down version designed to please everyone else. One of the most defining moments of Serena's career came in 2003, when she completed the Serena Slam. Holding all 4 Grand Slam titles simultaneously, this achievement put her in a category with only the greatest players in tennis history. But rather than celebrating and resting on her achievements, Serena used this success as motivation to reach even higher levels. She understood something that many successful people never grasp. Your greatest achievements should be stepping stones to even greater accomplishments, not finish lines where you stop and celebrate. She began working with new coaches, refining every aspect of her game, and setting goals that seemed impossible even for someone of her caliber. She wanted to be remembered not just as a great player, but as the greatest player who ever lived. This reveals the 7th principle of her success: use success as motivation for greater success. not as an excuse to get comfortable. Champions never stop growing, never stop improving, and never stop pushing their limits. The middle part of Serena's career presented challenges that tested every principle she had learned. Injuries began to accumulate. Younger players emerged who had studied her game their entire lives, and the physical demands of professional tennis began to take their toll. There were periods when critics said she was finished, that younger players had surpassed her, that her best days were behind her. Many athletes would have accepted these limitations and begun planning their retirement. But Serena had developed what she called the champion's mindset. The belief that temporary setbacks are just opportunities to come back stronger than ever. Every injury became a chance to improve her fitness. Every loss became a learning experience that made her more dangerous in future matches. She would spend months rehabbing injuries, working with trainers, nutritionists, and mental performance coaches to return to competition better than she had been before getting hurt. Her comeback victories became legendary because they showed the world what true resilience looks like. This teaches us the 8th principle of her success. Treat setbacks as setups for comebacks. Every challenge you face is an opportunity to develop new strengths and reach new levels of performance. One of the most remarkable aspects of Serena's career was her ability to maintain peak performance across multiple decades. While most athletes have a few great years and then decline, Serena was winning Grand Slams in her 30s, competing at the highest level well beyond the age when most tennis players retire. This longevity wasn't accidental. It was the result of a systematic approach to career management that most athletes never develop. Serena understood that maintaining peak performance required constant evolution, both physically and mentally. She continuously updated her training methods, worked with cutting-edge sports science, and most importantly, kept finding new sources of motivation even after achieving everything most athletes could dream of. Her motivation evolved from proving doubters wrong to inspiring the next generation, from personal achievement to using her platform for social change, from individual success to creating a legacy that would impact the sport forever. This gives us the 9th principle we learn from her journey. Continuously evolve your motivation as you achieve your goals. The reasons that drive you to initial success may not be the same reasons that sustain long-term excellence. The challenges Serena faced weren't limited to tennis courts. She dealt with health scares that threatened not just her career, but her life. She faced personal relationships that played out in public, family issues that tested her emotional strength, and the constant pressure of being a role model for millions of people around the world. Each of these challenges could have derailed her career. Instead, they became sources of strength that made her more complete as both an athlete and a person. She learned to compartmentalize personal struggles while maintaining professional excellence, a skill that served her throughout her career. She also became an advocate for issues beyond tennis, using her platform to address social justice, gender equality, and health awareness. This expansion of her identity beyond just being a tennis player gave her a sense of purpose that sustained her through the most difficult periods of her career. The 10th principle we learn from Serena is this: develop an identity larger than your primary field of achievement. When you have multiple sources of meaning and purpose, setbacks in one area won't destroy your overall sense of self-worth. One of Serena's greatest challenges came when she decided to start a family while still competing at the highest level of professional tennis. Many people told her she would have to choose between being a mother and being a champion, that the physical demands of pregnancy and childbirth would end her competitive career. But Serena approached motherhood the same way she approached every other challenge, with determination to prove that limitations exist only in people's minds, not in reality. She won the Australian Open while pregnant, showing the world that women are capable of far more than society often believes. Her return to tennis after giving birth was one of the most inspiring comebacks in sports history. She faced new physical challenges, emotional adjustments, and time management difficulties that she had never experienced before. The critics were ready to write her off, saying that her age and the demands of motherhood would prevent her from competing with younger, childless players. Instead, Serena reached the finals of multiple Grand Slams after becoming a mother, proving once again that she operated by different rules than everyone else. This teaches us the 11th principle of her success. Refuse to accept other people's definitions of what's possible for your life. Society will try to put you in boxes and tell you what you can't do. Champions break those boxes and create their own definitions of possible. Throughout her entire career, Serena maintained something that set her apart from every other athlete: an absolute belief in her ability to win any match against any opponent on any given day. This wasn't arrogance or delusion. It was a carefully cultivated mindset based on years of preparation and proven results. She would walk onto center court at Wimbledon or the US Open with the same confidence whether she was playing the #1 player in the world or a qualifier she had never heard of. This consistency of belief was one of her greatest weapons. Her pre-match routine, her visualization techniques, and her ability to stay calm under pressure were all designed to maintain this belief even in the most challenging circumstances. She understood that talent might get you to the big stage, but belief is what wins championships. The 12th principle we learn from Serena is that unshakable self-belief isn't something you're born with. It's something you build through consistent preparation, positive self-talk, and the accumulation of evidence that proves you can succeed in difficult situations. As Serena's career wound down, she faced the challenge that every great athlete must eventually confront: knowing when to step away from the sport that defined their identity for decades. The decision to retire is often harder than any match they ever played, but Serena approached retirement the same way she approached everything else: on her own terms, with dignity, and with a clear vision for what came next. She didn't wait for her skills to deteriorate to the point where retirement was forced upon her. She chose to leave while she could still compete at the highest level. Her farewell to tennis at the 2022 US Open was a celebration of everything she had accomplished and a launchpad for everything she planned to do next. She had built businesses, invested in other athletes, and created platforms for social change that would impact the world long after her last tennis match. This final principle from Serena's journey teaches us that true champions know how to end chapters of their lives with grace while beginning new chapters with enthusiasm. The end of one dream should be the beginning of another, not the end of ambition altogether. When we look at Serena Williams' complete career, we see more than just tennis statistics and championship trophies. We see a masterclass in human potential, a blueprint for turning obstacles into advantages, and proof that the most powerful force in the world is a person who refuses to accept limitations. Serena's 23 Grand Slam singles titles are just the visible evidence of invisible principles that can transform anyone's life. These aren't tennis lessons. They're life lessons disguised as sports stories. Let's recap the 12 revolutionary principles that powered Serena Williams from the courts of Compton to the pinnacle of athletic achievement. First, your background doesn't determine your destiny. Your response to your background determines your destiny. Second, prepare for the mental game as intensively as you prepare for the physical game. Third, transform external pressure into internal power. Fourth, embrace what makes you different instead of trying to fit in. Fifth, develop systems for peak performance under pressure. Sixth, never dim your light to make others comfortable. Seventh, use success as motivation for greater success, not as an excuse to get comfortable. Eighth, treat setbacks as setups for comebacks. Ninth, continuously evolve your motivation as you achieve your goals. 10th, develop an identity larger than your primary field of achievement. 11th, refuse to accept other people's definitions of what's possible for your life. 12th, build unshakable self-belief through consistent preparation and positive self-talk. These principles transformed a young girl from Compton into the greatest tennis player of all time. But more importantly, they can transform anyone who applies them consistently to their own challenges and dreams. The story of Serena Williams proves that champions aren't born. They're forged through adversity, shaped by challenges, and refined through relentless pursuit of excellence. Every obstacle she faced became a stepping stone to greater achievement. But here's what makes her story truly extraordinary. She didn't just overcome challenges for personal success. She used her platform to make it easier for the next generation of athletes, especially young Black women, to believe in their own potential. She changed the conversation about what female athletes could look like, how they could act, and what they could achieve. She proved that power and grace aren't opposites. They're perfect complements when channeled through focused determination. The concrete courts of Compton, where Serena learned to play tennis, are still there. But they're no longer just courts where a poor kid learned to hit a ball. They're symbols of unlimited potential, proof that greatness can emerge from anywhere when it's combined with the right mindset and relentless work ethic. Every time a young athlete faces discrimination, doubt, or limited resources, they can look at Serena's story and realize that these aren't roadblocks. They're the raw materials that champions use to build unstoppable determination. Your own journey might not involve tennis courts or Grand Slam trophies, but the principles that powered Serena's success can power your success in any field. The question isn't whether you have the right background or perfect conditions. The question is whether you're willing to develop the mindset of a champion. Are you willing to transform obstacles into opportunities? Are you willing to let criticism fuel your determination rather than dim your confidence? Are you willing to prepare for success while others are making excuses for why success isn't possible? These are the choices that separate people who dream from people who achieve. These are the principles that built a tennis legend, and they're the same principles that can build whatever legacy you choose to create. Serena Williams dominated tennis for over 2 decades, but her greatest victory wasn't on any court. It was the victory over the voice in our heads that says we're not good enough, not strong enough, or not worthy enough to achieve our biggest dreams. That voice exists in everyone's mind, but champions learn to replace it with a different voice. One that says every challenge is an opportunity, every setback is a setup for a comeback, and every dream is achievable for those willing to do whatever it takes to make it reality. The courts where you'll build your legacy might not be tennis courts, but the principles that will get you there are the same ones that got Serena Williams from Compton to the top of the world. What legacy are you ready to build with them? If this story inspired you to see your own challenges as opportunities for greatness, make sure to subscribe to StoVibe for more incredible stories of champions who transformed adversity into achievement. Hit that notification bell so you never miss the content that could change your life. And let me know in the comments what challenge you're ready to transform into your greatest opportunity.